Hey there Bruce, welcome back to Remember 11. Let's just carry on from where we left off, shall we? Because we seem to be getting through this route pretty damn quickly. I'm sorry about earlier, Yukido-kun. Utsumi and I were in the dining area. We were sitting at the table facing each other. Yuni was there as well, sitting beside Utsumi. Placed in front of us were cups filled to the brim with warm beverages. Utsumi and I were having coffee and Yuni was having milk tea. Earlier you mean about Inabushi Kaiko? As soon as I asked, Utsumi shook her head and laughed. I couldn't see that as a laughing matter. Inabushi Kaiko was now asleep. Yuni and I had carried her back to her room. The three of us had gathered here soon after. Hey, can I ask something? Yuni entered the talk hesitantly. Why does Satoru call that girl Inabushi Kaiko? Isn't her name Suzukage Hitori? I was puzzled over how to answer. As I searched for the right words, Utsumi spoke. The name, Yuni-kun. Where did you hear it? From her. She told me herself. Is that so? Well, you see, Yuni-kun, she suffers from an illness called dissociative identity disorder. Within her exists another, different self named Suzukage Hitori, and her real name, the one in her family register, is Inabushi Kaiko. I see, so that's how it is. There was no longer any doubt as to why that girl had two different names. Come to think of it, I should have been aware of it from the start. After all, that was the main reason why she was confined in SPHIA. After Utsumi's explanation, that which was somewhat obvious had become a solid fact. Well, perhaps it's difficult for you to understand. In any case, she's mentally ill. The same as Yukido-kun here. God damn it. Stop calling me out like that. Fucking hell. Whatever. I couldn't help but nod. My heart felt like it was being eaten away. But here and now was the first time I'd heard the specified name for it. Dissociative identity disorder. I turned to Utsumi again to confirm what I just heard. I've developed a split personality? Yes. She replied to my question with that word. How can you tell? Because you call yourself Fuyukawa Kokoro. I had no recollection of that, but since Yuni confirmed it too, it had to be true. Some time ago, I'd introduced myself as Fuyukawa Kokoro. But then, why did Satoru call himself Kokoro? The answer to that question was as follows. Because it was most convenient for him. In an attempt to stabilize his mind, he judged that taking on the persona of Fuyukawa Kokoro was the most convenient measure. Utsumi answered Yuni. Shutting my mouth, I listened to her story. I felt like they were talking about somebody else's problem. Even when they mentioned Yukido-kun, him, and so forth, it felt like it had nothing to do with me. Listen, Yukido-kun. Utsumi turned to me and spoke. I'll ask you some questions now. Answer honestly, okay? First of all, do any of these names sound familiar? Mayuzumi Lin and Yomogi Seiji. Yes, that's her husband. Does she know that we know her husband? I'm very confused now. Yes. Yeah, I know them. I answered, flustered. Lin, she went out with me some time ago, and Yomogi-san is Utsumi-san's... I started speaking, but I stopped mid-sentence. How could I have forgotten something so important up until now? Yomogi Seiji and Utsumi Kali were married. After the approval of the dual surname system with the law revision in 2008, Kali had changed her surname back to Utsumi, her maiden name. In other words, the man who had appeared in my dream was none other than Utsumi's husband. However, why did Utsumi decide to ask about him now? And why Mayuzumi Lin too? The fact that Utsumi knew about Yomogi Seiji was of no surprise to me, but how did she know about Lin? Right, there wasn't any need to ask. You do know those two. The next question. You remember the incident which occurred last year on Mount Akakura? Yeah, I remember that too. She's probably referring to Flight HAL 18. At this point, Yuni abruptly forced his way into the conversation. Hey, what are you two talking about? Utsumi tilted her head in confusion. She glanced back at Yuni with a bewildered look. How strange. Huh? What's strange? No, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Even though you tell me not to, I still can't help it. It's fine. Just stay quiet for a few minutes. I'm talking to Oni-chan now. Well, please, if you have something to say, I'll hear you out later, okay? Yuni pouted sulkily and shut his mouth. He took a sip of the milk tea instead. I looked back at Utsumi and continued, and then? What were you trying to say? Haven't you figured it out yet? If you put it like that, I guess. The HAL 18 incident, the ones who were aboard the small passenger plane. So that's what it was all about. Yomogi Seiji, Fuyukawa Kokoro, Mayuzumi Lin. On the 17th of January last year, the three of them were caught in an avalanche on Mount Akakura. Yes, that's right. That's why I know about Fuyukawa-san and Mayuzumi-san, and of course about Yuni-kun too. Yuni inclined his head, openly expressing his curiosity at the mention of his name. Yet, he was obediently staying quiet. Did Utsumi's warning work? But I couldn't stay quiet. And as soon as the thought crossed my mind, the words came out automatically. Yeah, that's right. Why is Yuni here anyway? He was the only survivor of the crash. Since then, 1 year had passed and I still had no ideas as to why or how he showed up in SPHIA. Well, you know. Yuni tried to answer, but Utsumi stopped him. Wait, don't make this any more complicated than it already is. I'll try to explain everything from the beginning. From the beginning? About me too? Yes, when I say everything, I mean everything. Everything that I know, at least. But only under one condition. A condition? I can't have this talk with both of you at the same time. So would you come into my room one at a time, please? Why? Because. Unless you accept this condition, I won't tell you anything. You don't have much of a choice we don't have much of a choice if you put it like that. Yuni and I nodded quietly. Then, first up is Yukido-kun. With that proclamation, Utsumi stood up from his seat. She headed toward her room. Yuni and I were still trying to regain our composure after the unexpected twist. Yukido-kun, don't you want to hear? As urged, I hastily followed Utsumi. Just before I entered the room, I threw a glance over my shoulder. Yuni, sitting shyly on the chair in the dining area, had a loss as to what to do. He was staring back at me, bewildered. There's something that I'd like to say before we begin. Utsumi took a seat on the bed. Go ahead. She urged me toward a nearby chair with a wave of her hand. I leaned against the chair in front of the desk. So, what is it you wanted to say? This is SPHIA, the Specified Psychiatric Hospital for Isolation and Aegis. Is that clear to you? That much I knew even if you hadn't told me. No, you don't understand the first thing about it yet. This is a facility that houses people diagnosed with mental disorders. In short, the people here are all nut jobs, you say. That's right. Saying this might be somewhat rude, but I have to say it anyway. I personally have my doubts as to whether the three of you actually have mental disorders. That goes for Inabushi Kaiko and Yuni-kun as well. Conversely, it would be fair to say that the same from your standpoint. For the four of us here, including me, there is a possibility we all suffer from mental disorders and... Sorry, but I don't really get what you're saying. What I'm trying to say is don't trust anyone. Inabushi Kaiko's words, Yuni-kun's words, your words, and indeed my own words as well. Anyone's. You can't assert that there's any truth to anyone's words. Wait a minute. I can understand you not being able to trust us, but why mustn't I trust Yuni's words or even your own words? And isn't it a bit strange for you to tell someone that they shouldn't necessarily believe you in the first place? All I'm trying to do is tell you to look ahead. To look ahead? I suspect that you will, sooner or later, come to doubt my words. Utsumi Kali may have a mental disorder too. That thought may cross your mind. And if that happens, you have to go back and reanalyze everything that you've heard me say. It'd be quite a nuisance, wouldn't it? So that's why I've decided to warn you in advance. What I say, what I inform you of now, may not necessarily be restricted to the truth. Do you understand? Well, it's okay even if you don't understand it now. Anyway, let me repeat myself. Don't trust anything anyone says here. Every last one of us. It's better if you thought of us as liars. And since that's what we are, the things we say may end up being fibs, misconceptions, or even deliberate deception. However, try not to get distracted by that, okay? If you want to have the composure to accept it as is, I want you to always remain calm. Got it? Remember, this is instrumental to you keeping your sanity. Will you accept this? I see. Though I find it difficult to completely understand what you're saying, well, I think I'll take your advice as it stands. I won't believe a word you say. And you, in turn, are free to view me as a liar. So if we all doubt one another, we'll end up building a sort of mutual trust. Is that it? A broad smile. Her face lit up and she nodded slightly. Now then, shall we begin? Contradictory to the seriousness of the subjects, our talk now began with playful words. It was a long talk. As it stretched on, it grew in complexity as well as length. More and more overlapping subjects were now becoming obvious. And as I asked my questions, I constantly reshuffled the answers in my head. As far as I could tell, our discussion boiled down to this. About me, Yukido Satoru. Utsumi and Yuni seem to think that I have DID. A fact I'd very much like to deny, but it seems difficult to test or refute it under the circumstances. So for the time being, as a temporary measure, I decided to go along with the assumption. I've no idea what Inabushi Kaiko thinks of me right now. However, sooner or later the news of my condition will become known to her. Utsumi or maybe Yuni will surely inform her of it. Hey there, Yukido-kun. DID, right? We're the same, aren't we? There's no stopping that, so I realised I just have to accept it. Utsumi, Yuni, and Ibushi, the three of them, will inevitably come to view me as having DID. It's not like I particularly care. Compared with all the other problems on my mind, that wasn't really a big deal. Now, amongst the myriad of other things that were bothering me was this. As Yuni pointed it out some time ago too, why did Utsumi act so calmly to that me with DID claiming to be Fuyukawa Kokoro? She clearly knew about Fuyukawa Kokoro being caught in the avalanche with her husband, Yomogi Seiji. When I tried to deceive her with the name of the person she knew, as a matter of course, you'd expect her to react with a healthy dose of repulsion or something. In her own words, yes, it certainly was a shock at first, although shock is rather an understatement. I really did think you were lying. And then I instinctively slapped you. My apology a little while ago was for that. I was mistaken about you, Yukido-kun. Therefore, I'm sorry. However, she said it doesn't bother her anymore. Why is that so? It also seems that Utsumi knew that I'd gone out with Lin thanks to a mysterious document, the matter of which I shall touch upon later. But in any case, Utsumi trusted that document with 100% certainty. That's how she put it. Yukido-kun, deep in your heart you still feel strongly for Mayuzumi-san, but she has long since left this world. She died on the 17th of January last year. It's painful to accept such a reality, so you try not to admit it. But inside yourself, the thought of bringing about a world where Mayuzumi-san is alive, even if it's just within you, lives on. However, creating an image of her in your mind just won't do for you. Thus, your purpose isn't to conjure up such an image, but a false reality, so to speak, where it is a fact that Mayuzumi-san is alive. So trying to be as logical and consistent as you could, you desperately try to produce this world within your mind, to cheat yourself, to make it believable. You sought out and found a third personality, not Mayuzumi-san, nor yourself. So who would you choose? Someone who could perhaps be able to change this sad reality? It would be easiest for you to take on the role of one of the other survivors who was caught in the avalanche, it didn't matter who. And the one you chose was Fuyukawa Kokoro, it seems. But that was just Utsumi's explanation. I had a different opinion. Lin and I parted ways over 18 months ago. It may be a bit cold to say this, but by the time of the accident, I simply didn't love her as much as I did before. Of course, losing her was sad. Sad, but certainly not to the point where it would cause me to develop a personality disorder. Consequently, I couldn't accept Utsumi's claim. I did disagree with certain parts of it, but at any rate, that's how it was. That was just Utsumi's personal interpretation anyway, one which I quickly decided to disregard. Her strange advice in the introduction, don't trust anyone's words, had helped me a lot with this matter. Now, about my amnesia. I decided to be frank and told Utsumi the following. I have no recollection of any events except for a select few from the time of my birth up until now. Strictly speaking, my memories begin the moment I began having the dreams about that mountain cabin. I can hardly remember anything that happened before that, but somehow there were other things I hadn't forgotten. Hereafter I will list the most important memories. First, my own name. My name is Yukido Satoru. I'm 21 years old. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, 2012 AD. I'm in SPHIA, the Specified Psychiatric Hospital for Isolation and Aegis. The layout of SPHIA is also roughly inscribed in my mind. I'm more or less familiar with my current surroundings. The people here at SPHIA are Ibushi Kaiko, Utsumi Kali, and me. According to my memory, only the three of us should be here. Yuni must be a special case. Ibushi Kaiko has DID. After the incident in Awazumi, she was institutionalized here. I know the full story of the tragedy that occurred in the hospital. I'll leave Yuni and Utsumi for later. Next up we have Mount Akakura, the crash of HAL 18 last year, the three survivors who were later buried in that avalanche. These facts are clearly etched into my memory. The people in the shelter, Yomogi Seiji, Fuyukawa Kokoro, Mayuzumi Lin, and Kusuda Yuni. Yomogi is Utsumi's husband, and a mountaineer. Kokoro is a third-year student at Humeikan Women's University. Mayuzumi Lin, it would take forever to try and list the things I remember about her. The fact that we were going out several episodes in our relationship, some noteworthy conversations and so on. Sometimes I feel like I remember more about Lin than I do about myself. I know all there is to know about her. Lin was a very important person to me, much more so than just a romantic liaison. That should be just about everything that I can remember. Now then, this time, let's line up the things I forgot or perhaps didn't know to begin with. First of all, as I said before, prior to the dream of the mountain cabin, I remember nothing. Where I was born, what my childhood was like, how I lived until now. I don't even remember my parents. And how about something more recent? How long have I been in SPHIA? Why am I here? Why? What for? What's my goal here? The only possibilities that sprung to mind were that I was a patient here, or a staff member. When I asked Utsumi about this, you must have been a member of staff. But I'm not sure anymore. Perhaps you've been a patient here from the start. Just like that, she said something that only added to my unnecessary confusion. Let's move on. I know a lot about Ibushi Kaiko as well. On the other hand, Utsumi and Yuni are still a mystery to me. Why is Utsumi in SPHIA? The way she put it was, I'm working here as a psychiatrist, but those words now lacked credibility. Since she herself instructed me not to trust anyone, I decided to do just that regarding this matter. She's in here because her son was murdered by Inabushi Kaiko? And she lost her marbles, right? I can't just regard the possibility of Utsumi being a patient here. What about Yuni? Why is he here? That's the curious one, yeah. Our conversation on this matter went along these lines. I don't know, he just suddenly showed up. Suddenly showed up? I think it was sometime after 5 in the evening, when I noticed that Unikin was here. That's ridiculous. This facility isn't a place that someone from the outside could simply stroll in and out of, right? I know that just as well as you. What else can I say? He was just there. That's totally absurd. Utsumi seemed to think so as well. Of course I thought it was suspicious at first too. I kept my guard up just in case he was plotting something. It's only natural, right? He's a kid. He's the only survivor of the plane crash, who then suddenly shows up just like that in front of me. Me, a family member of one of the victims. For example, what if Unikin had been transported to SPHIA as a patient without me knowing? Wouldn't that be strange? Wouldn't you normally think it's weird? After Utsumi voiced all of the doubts I myself had been having, she continued. But you know what? The one document solved everything. Since both the source and the author are unknown, I guess it belongs to a class of documents you couldn't use as a reference for a term paper. But what is that document? It's basically a collection of a huge amount of text files stored on the terabyte disk. A terabyte disk? You mean the one Yuni was carrying? Yes. What kind of things are in there? Kusuda Yuni exists to exist. Huh? Of course, not only that, the fact that Yukido-kun and Mayuzumi-san were once lovers. The fact that Yukido-kun has dissociative identity disorder. As for the rest of it, I can call it nothing short of prophecy spanning many gigabytes. Things that only I or only Yuni could possibly know were there, spelled out in black and white. Here and there, whoever made this was even courteous enough to attach a video pertaining to the content of the text. So I came to believe that the things mentioned in there were true. I couldn't help but believe them. That would be a more accurate way to put it. Despite not knowing who wrote it or why. That's triviality. If you read it too, I think you'll agree. Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like everything on it was absolutely true. In the end, the matter of Yuni had been left unsettled. Kusuda Yuni exists to exist. I can't understand anything until I see the contents of that disc. I'll try borrowing it from Yuni later. That said, I'll temporarily put the investigation into the mystery of Yuni on hold. Now then, let's continue. The continuation of the list of things forgotten by me. I tried to think about the people on Mount Akakura. There were so many things related to Kokoro and Yomogi that I didn't know, which was reasonable. I could only remember them as victims caught in the avalanche along with Lin. Well, come to think of it, I can't really say that I remember everything about Lin either. I remember a lot when we were dating, but I'd forgotten something quite important, namely the beginning and the end. In other words, how and why we started dating and why we broke up. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember. Had we really gone out? I doubted even that. However, I can't remember what I can't remember. I decided it'd be better to give up on that line of thought. That was roughly all the content in my memories. Incomprehensible indeed. There seemed to be no rhythm, no rhyme or reason as to what I remembered and what I'd forgotten. The more I thought about how irrational it was, the more worried I became. Utsumi had this to say. Your condition certainly differs from typical amnesia, and nothing I've ever seen before, so I can't really tell. But perhaps your existence right now may be a result of a brand new personality born within your body. If you think about it that way, it would explain why you have no memories of the past. The fragmentary memories popping up here and there may be directly linked to the original Yukido-kun. If I'm not mistaken, you woke up here in SPHIA about an hour and a half ago, right? If that's so, Yukido-kun, the current you, the one I'm talking to you, is a special existence, one that gave its first birth cry a mere 90 minutes ago. Of course, it's just a possibility, but my personality was born 90 minutes ago? Wouldn't that mean that I didn't exist before? That's nonsense, it couldn't be. I was about to lose my temper and started thinking about how I'd prove her wrong, even if it cost me my life. Psycho. But to my regret and dismay, I could find no words to object to his statement with. The mere fact of my being here would surely imply the need for my identity to have a constant past and history. But nevertheless, I just can't accept your reasoning. I most certainly have a past and a history. I might have had no basis for it right then, but I certainly felt a strong need to persuade myself of this. And so our talk ended. Utsumi also summed up the events that happened today for me. Up until this evening, I had been just another calm, ordinary day, everything proceeding as usual. And then, just after 4 PM, During the raging blizzard, a bolt of lightning struck Sphere's clock tower. Of course, since Utsumi didn't go outside, she couldn't say that she'd witnessed the scene firsthand, but she had experienced the sound of the lightning hitting the tower, the shock that followed, and the flash from the other side of the window. Incidentally, at the same time, Utsumi had also witnessed a far more shocking scene. As the lightning bolt struck, Utsumi was in the living area, looking outside the window. In the darkness, a pale flash illuminated the surroundings. At that moment, at that exact instant, you fell. From the sky. I fell from the clock tower alongside that bolt of lightning. The living area's window looked out onto a roofless terrace. This terrace was covered with a layer of snow about a meter thick. That snow had acted as a cushion, aiding my escape from death. Utsumi dug me out of the snow and carried me to the bedroom I woke up in. At that time, needless to say, I was unconscious. Around 5 PM, though it was mentioned before, Utsumi found Yuni inside Sphere. The discovery took place in one of the rooms supposedly vacant until then. She heard an odd noise and opened the door to find a lone boy crouching on the floor. Utsumi was bewildered. Why is Kusuda Yuni here? She was puzzled, feeling something akin to fear, so she didn't try to talk to him. Around 8 PM, Utsumi visited my room to check up on me. Utsumi said I introduced myself as Fuyukawa Kokoro then. That combined with Yuni's sudden and unexplained appearance caused her to suddenly lash out. She slapped me, yelled stop messing around and left the room. Afterward, according to Yuni, I looked in a mirror and went berserk. Utsumi, who heard the scream, rushed in and interjected with a sedative. Just like Unabushi a short while ago, I fell asleep in an instant. Utsumi and Yuni then read through the contents of the mysterious terabyte disk. How does everything keep appearing in this place? Is this place not real? Then around 9 PM, I opened my eyes as me, an existence within the consciousness of Yukido Satoru. Since I remembered everything from that point on, there was no need for her to continue. Thus, Utsumi's long story ended. As I finished listening to it, I felt very refreshed. Of course, there was still a mountain of things I didn't understand, but the things I didn't understand are the things that I did understand. For me, being able to make that distinction felt like a huge leap forward. With this, I've told you everything I know. Now then, next is Unikun's turn. Will you go call him for me? Utsumi stood up and walked to the door. She put her hand on the doorknob. I too stood up from my chair, but I stopped just before leaving the room. There was still something bothering me. Okay, let's save. Why did I climb the clock tower? Can I just ask one last thing? Of course. Why did I even go up the clock tower in the first place? You don't remember that either. That's right. Then the reason you fell from the clock tower... I don't know. Ah, Utsumi-san, do you know something? No. The last time I saw you, if I recall correctly, was around 3:30 PM. I just saw you from behind going down the stairs from the living area. Going down the stairs? Have you remembered something? No, nothing. I shook my head, my mouth slackening into a self-derisive grin. Will that be all for now? Please call Unikun for me. You've been a big help. Thank you for telling me all those things. Expressing my gratitude from the bottom of my heart, I left the room. Ah, right. Just as I stepped into the living area, I heard a voice call out to me again. I turned around to see Utsumi on the other side of the open door where I'd last seen her. Yukido-kun, sorry to ask you, but could you please put away those cups on the table for me? Her gentle smile calmed my mind immediately. There truly is a soothing force that transcends all reason within the smile of a beautiful woman. Yeah, I got it. I returned her smile. Thanks. Her smile broadened even further. An extraordinary exchange of ordinary words and courtesies. But right now, even ordinary words like these feel so incredibly precious to me. I headed toward the kitchen on steps as light as a feather. Gah, you took forever. Uni sighed, sounding tired. Resting his chin on his hands, he looked at me with drowsy eyes from across the table. What you talk about? Well, this and that. Utsumi-san's waiting for you in there. She told me to send you in. Ah, gotcha. With that lackadaisical answer, Uni left his seat. Swaying on his feet like a drunk, he headed toward Utsumi's room. After I watched him go, well then, let's get this cleaned up. I lifted the 3 cups left on the table with 3 of my fingers. Cups in hand, I walked toward the sink. The hold my 3 fingers had on the handles was rather precarious. Are you going to break them? Just as I tried to get a better grip, the cups slipped right out of my hands. The one thing we asked you to do. One thing. Get one job. Carry the cups to the sink. Nope, can't manage it. Oh, damn it. I grumbled as I gathered up the broken pieces. 1, 2, 3, I picked them up without even thinking about it. The moment I reached out for the next broken piece, I finally noticed it. I jumped back in confusion, feeling like I touched something I wasn't supposed to. A few fragments slipped from my hands, fluttering and dancing in the air like scraps of paper. No, that's not it. They really are scraps of paper. Tiny characters were squeezed onto each scrap. I could tell at a glance that it was a newspaper. I should have recognized the newspaper scraps for what they were, but for some reason I'd mistaken them for something else. To put it precisely, I was convinced they were pieces of broken cups, because up until just now they really had been cups in my hand, and yet just like magic they suddenly transformed into newspaper. Still reeling from the shock, I almost forgot to breathe altogether. You okay now? The man standing beside me spoke. It's Yomogi, the man in that dream. Why is he here? The answer's obvious. I guess my consciousness had once again been pulled into the dream world. Damn, what a pain. Why'd you do that? Never mind, it's pointless to even ask. You probably had another fit, that's all. Sheesh. With those words, Yomogi knelt down and began collecting all the newspaper scraps. Someone else decided to silently help him. It was Yuni. Looking across the room, I could see Lin there too. She was chewing on something with her chin planted on the table. Was it gum? She seemed pretty listless, and I had an apathetic look on her face. I was in the mountain cabin. Everything in the room was almost identical to the dream I'd seen earlier. If I'd had to name a single difference, it'd be undoubtedly the scraps of paper that were scattered all over the floor. This dream again. Yomogi turned around, still kneeling on the floor and grumbling as he picked up the scraps. Huh? No, nothing, don't worry. It would be meaningless to say anything to the characters in a dream. Waving my hands as in a gesture of please keep it up, I headed over to the cabin window. There was a blizzard outside. I could tell due to the countless snowflakes striking the glass and the gloomy echoes that filled the room. I gazed into the darkness of the storm, but beside the swirling white there was nothing out there to be seen. I returned my eyes to the surface of the glass. Though I had already expected this, I couldn't help but despair whenever I saw my reflection. Just as I feared, the face of that unknown woman still reflected in the surface of the glass. Damn it, who is this woman anyway? Those words left my mouth unconsciously. It's you, another self whispered to me. I know that already, but just to be sure I had to confirm it with my own eyes. I tried smiling, pursing my lips, bringing my hand to my cheek. No matter what I did, the woman reflected in the glass matched my movements perfectly. There was a bilateral symmetry and no time difference. She reproduced everything I did without discrepancy, exactly the same way. I turned away from the window. Surprise attack. She immediately turned around as well, staring at me with eyes full of suspicion. Still standing there by the window, I looked down at my body. A ribbon at my chest, a light pink skirt, a high lace-up boots. I opened my hands and placed them together. My reaction speed was no different than it was in reality. I swung my arms. I did a stretch, I jumped, I even did a knee-high dash. Then I tried again, without using my hands, and my movements became pretty awkward. Okay, let's try some push-ups now. 1, 2, 3. Before I reached double digits, my head collapsed to the floor in exhaustion. I had an overwhelming lack of physical strength. The physical endurance of this body was far different from what I expected. The divergence between the mental and physical self. Though the body was still made of normal human flesh, it felt like it was composed of something akin to jelly. I got up unsteadily and wiped the dust from my clothes. Thankfully, there was no hindrance to everyday movement. The real problem was the potential physical output and stamina. No, it wasn't just that. In the long run, there were two differences I was unlikely to adapt to easily. First, the mammary organs growing on my chest. They weren't all that big, but it didn't change the fact that they were definitely depressingly there. The idea that something that shouldn't be there actually was, just as I thought it were natural, made me feel uncomfortable. As far as I'm concerned, they were undesired and nothing but an obstacle. And moreover, there were two of them. Don't saddle me with these things, was one of the complaints I wanted to make. And on top of that, I really wanted to do something about this feeling of oppression on my chest. I reached an arm into my clothes, searched along my back, and undid the hook there. Ew. It became a little easier to breathe. Secondly, my lower half felt cold. It was drafty and the skirt made me feel uneasy. Did the creatures known as women really walk around wearing something that renders them so defenseless? It's somehow hard to believe. I tried pushing the skirt up between my thighs. It didn't fit very well there. I tried pulling it up around my rear, but as I'd feared, it didn't help at all. And then something hit me. Something that shouldn't be there actually was. I might as well be aware of that terrible situation, but moreover, it was more at the case that something that should have been there now isn't. Oh yeah, I forgot the most important thing. Feeling a little dismayed, I tried searching around for it. No way. Are you serious? It wasn't there. The thing that should have been there wasn't. Because you're a woman now. My most precious treasure had been snatched away. Really? I was driven to distraction over the loss of that important symbol. It's not there, it's not there, it's not there. Where did it go? I groped around my lower body in desperation. Searching for what was lost. Searching for my irreplaceable pal. Confusion and bewilderment can't come close to describing the way I felt. This is a state of emergency. Emergency equal to the destruction of the world. But no matter where and how much I searched, I couldn't find it. Obviously, I couldn't do something like crawl out from under the bed and say good evening. This is the body of a stranger, a woman's body. Furthermore, it's happening in a dream. I know that, but I couldn't help muttering it. It's not there. With both hands still between my legs, I howled up to the heavens. Why isn't it there? Jesus Christ. Alright, it's time to wrap this one up because we're out of time for today. And what a classy way to end an episode. Hope you enjoyed it, Bruce. I'll see you in the next one.